Hello, everyone, and welcome to another HORRORific review. Right, as promised, I subjected myself to this wonderful sequel of an interesting movie. Oh, dearie me. Now, The Hills of Eyes 2, the premise is actually quite interesting because the questions we were asking in the first one's like, okay, government know about these folks and they're doing all this. Why isn't there a concerted effort to hunt them down? So this premise of the movie's laid on government being charged with hunting down these people, the hill folk, and things go wrong. Squad of recruits, which we'll get on that in a minute. But yeah, what I was expecting them were, you know, supposedly the might of the American army trying to take on people who are know the terrain, have built themselves in, they're intuitive and got ingenuity, all that kind of stuff, and how it would look. That's not what we'll get. No. We start off with your typical boring, we've got one of the hell people who thinks a captive, she's chained to a bed, giving birth. And it goes in to make her look as if she's one of them, but not. And like, it's torture porn again. It's that typical, let's make things look shocking for the sake of looking shocking, which honestly, it didn't add anything. It genuinely didn't add anything to this. There was no point to that scene, if that makes sense. And here's the problem. You can blame budget and stuff on why movies don't take off, but there's a load of budget wasted on special effects, etc., that could be used somewhere else. We then cut to we've got this tape. It's basically a recreation of the first scene. Maybe we got the first scene of all the government agents, and they've got the hazmat suits on, the Geiger counters, and they're testing the area after the bombs went off. We've basically got a team of scientists, like 3 of them or something, and they're setting up surveillance equipment. And this is where I can't get the American army, or the Americans, have a strange thing about how they show their rank structure. So the only person who's guarding them is a full colonel cutting about the place as if he's in barracks dress with a rifle slung over his shoulder. Actually, that would be a colonel. If I'm in the field. No, actually, my old CO, he got dirty and stuff, so can't really say that. Depends on the unit, depends on the leader. There's a lot of Lions Lizard officers, but this guy just looks like an absolute clown standing about the place, and he's trying to do the highway gunny thing, but it just doesn't work. And you would think if that was the focus, they'd have at least a platoon or a company out and rotating as if it's an exercise. Like, I know the British Army would do it, and there's hardly anybody in the British Army. And you think the Americans, with the vast resources they have, and the, you know what I mean? Anyway, it's daft. It's dumb. It's just that whole premise. So, of course, they get attacked. And then here's the weird thing. It jumps to a scene and even puts up, here's another really annoying thing. They use a lot of, scrolling text. And this, I think they're trying to make it authentic. I think they're trying to do Texas Chainsaw Massacre. I think that's actually what they're trying to copy here. The more I think about it, same as the first one, they brought up a bit of text and stuff. They're trying to make it, Texas Chainsaw Massacre based on a true story. Blair Witch. They're trying to do that kind of stuff, but it just cheapens the whole thing. So next thing you know, you see this thing come up saying Kandahar. You're like, really? Okay. And what I'm thinking then is, okay, this has happened. If in the first scene they'd shown it being a base and getting overrun, that would have made sense. But if you send 3 people and 1 bloke with a rifle out into the hills, knowing that there's people being systematically taken out, and all attempts to date have failed to locate and stop them, you do a bit more about, and then this would make sense then jumping to a team in Afghanistan, basically, Because you would think then that they're going to go, okay, we need the best of the best, and then they bring this team back. But that's not what happens here. So it says Kandahar, and you see these people running through the streets, and I mean, they're an absolute bunch of muppets, absolute clowns, and they're running, they're slipping over, and they're. I don't get this thing on discharging weapons with full automatic all the time, especially even for film effects. Anyone knows anything about rifles? I'm no gun person, you know what I mean. But something on repetition going doof, 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 has just about as much as impact, if not more, than somebody going brrr, and it's it's over. And these never-ending magazines, the ones that are like 500 rounds and they're about that size and they never end. That's that's basic stuff to get. The first one was better because I had an actual story to it. This is just absolutely daft. And the whole premise, like, I read out the premise at the start. It seemed interesting. What would happen? That's a cool story. But the way they've executed this is just nuts. So anyway, you've got all this here. They look like a bunch of clowns and they act like a bunch of clowns. And the bit at the end is, get some. And this guy's pulling out 2 grenades. And he's sitting and he can't pull out the pins or something like that. And then one of his comrades, she goes and kicks the door open so he can go, bruh, get some. But, and then you have this, somebody's coming out, oh, you killed my baby, you killed my baby. Like, you just walk out of 2 grenades in a enclosed space. And of course it did the nuclear explosion grenades, not the, they did the nuclear explosion and them doing the jumping thing as the building explodes. And then they're meant to believe this woman just comes walking out, you killed my baby. And then she has it's not even she has a bunch of grenades strapped to her as if she's a suicide vest. And then she goes, oh, you're dead. And then Norman's like, stop. And it turns out it's a training exercise. But it's a National Guard training exercise and it's National Guard recruits. And they're basically, reservists, army, the reservists. But you don't do mission-specific training as a recruit. So if these are a bunch of recruits, they wouldn't be doing this for a start, because that's follow. That's in-unit training. That's follow-on. That's where you don't have a bunch of recruits training to do mission-specific sort of stuff and patrolling in the likes of Iraq, Afghanistan, Northern Ireland, Bosnia. That stuff is specialist beat-up training before you go on ops, and it's all done with current. In basic training, you cover the basics. That's why it's called basic. Basically how not to run about like a bunch of clowns. You get the basics of a section attack out of the way. You go up to platoon attack. And basic. So it's you start off individual, master this thing, make sure the bullets come out the right way. Then you do it in pairs. Then you do it in 4s. Then you do it in teams, which is 2 sets of 4 section. And then you build it up that way. That takes a long time. A lot of muscle memory has to go into that, and it's so easily forgotten. To get that level of a group of individuals coming together as a squad, it takes a lot of work. So you're not going to do this sort of stuff. And then the weird thing is, it's one sergeant running the entire range, including the enemy and everything else. And we kind of don't see that. They're sent on a resupply run, which doesn't make sense either. They send more people out to drop off supplies, considering the fact there's like one person, one colonel with a rifle is actually guarding these people, but then they send a whole platoon out of recruits to drop off one crate. I mean, they send out obviously they send out a Lanny, but I know they send out a Humvee if it was deemed not that much of a threat. And the fact that they don't have comms, like they're operating in this area, it's a major endeavor. It's not just a in patrol on exercise. It's the wrong area. It's like a major endeavor. So they'd have comms set up, especially when they're locating a live enemy. Just absolute disaster. But I think this is where the plot needs to happen, sort of thing, where it's just done because events need to unfold. They go, they see the what do you call it? They see the camp, they see it's abandoned, and they see something's wrong, and then they see it flashing up in the hill, and then the sergeant decides that the entire platoon, except 2 people, are going to go up and investigate that. Like, in fairness, I have worked with Americans and a wee bit. Just say that, you know what I mean? Some good guys, but a lot of not much going on up there. So it wouldn't surprise me actually if we'll all go up. Plus, there's a whole mountain climbing aspect of this, which is like that's not basic training. That's not. Plus, they don't have the equipment. They've all just left the training camp, presumably to drop that stuff off on the way back to base, which I think they're not going to have that on board. And the fact that he says to them as well, are we taking blank weapons or sorry, blank rounds or live? Load up with one live, as if you carry live rounds and blank rounds together. There's a whole thing about ranges and leaving ranges and declarations, all that kind of stuff. You don't cut about the place with a flipping magazine of blank rounds and a magazine of live rounds, because the fire blank rounds through, right, you need a BFA, blank firing attachment, because the gas, it's the actual projectile of the bullet pushes the working parts back. If it's just blank, it just blows out and nothing happens. So it'd be bang, bang, which the old LS 98A1 cadet rifle used to do. You had the cock and handle here, so you fire once and you pull it back. It doesn't work. On the A1, then you got the BFA, you got the big yellow thing on the British one, just screws on the end, and that's to reduce, the blowback, so it actually gets the working parts. You don't, on what planet, and that's, you don't have to hire military advisors, you could talk to any squatty in the street. So you don't have to have like thousands of pounds of, experts come in. You just need to talk to normal people who've been in for a bit. Even reservists and National Guard, you cover the same basic stuff, and you don't go out. The only difference is reservists obviously takes longer because it's done on a part-time basis. So what might take a regular soldier 6 months would take a reservist 2 years to get up to the skill set. If that makes sense. So Americans, very smart, of course. Fantastic. As I said, there's a lot of great people, but there's a lot of knuckleheads, and unfortunately, because of the size of your country, you've just got a higher percentage of knuckleheads. But I think it's a betrayal. The portrayal of the American military in a lot of media ain't good. It's weird, and somebody tried to tell me it was a top secret thing, to mess with people, but it's not, because I know definitely British, we have half our enemies, countries that are enemies, train at Sandhurst. So like the Taliban and stuff have trained at Sandhurst, like officer. So we have people from our countries come and do the actual training, and same as we've crossed over with Americans and stuff, it happens. So the idea of, if I put it in a film, everyone will know. Well, sorry, it already happens, because a lot of countries make their money by providing training and the prestige of certain academies and stuff, the foreign militaries, just the way of the world. But this is just so ludicrous, I think. And if it was a horror comedy, I would get it. If this was a comedy, then all their actions and stuff would make sense. But it's not. And then they're going back on the truck. But, they're heading towards the base, and then they've got this weird fight happens between two, and talk about a stereotype. Like we angry Mexican man getting angry at somebody else randomly and then starting a whole fight over it. Basically making him out to be a gangbanger, where, that's a bit disingenuous, I think. And that, once again, didn't need to happen. Because at this stage, if they're getting to that suppose the advanced stage where they're using realistic buildings and stuff to go through and actually mission specific. But as I already said, they're a bunch of recruits. No, they don't spend money on that. I mean, that's set up for troops going in ops. You don't do that. But at this stage of their training, they'd be a well-formed unit, and all that shit would be out of their system. And anybody that can't handle being amongst different people wouldn't last. Because that's one thing about the military is, and it's always been ahead of the curve. And I hate this nonsense today, talking about diversity and stuff. You've always been, everybody comes in, everyone's comes from different backgrounds, different reasons for joining, different opinions, and it's taking those individuals and making them into a unit. That's the whole point of recruit training. And that, if nothing else is achieved, getting that sense of brotherhood, familyhood coming out, then allows them to fit into a unit where the actual proper training takes place. Because you can only do so much. You need to actually be in the unit. Then that's where you meet the experienced people, not just instructors, but then you meet senior privates, your lance corporal. You get to meet the whole rank structure. You see the good NCOs, bad NCOs, good. You get to get tested and get fitted in. And someone who's usually, if you're looking to progress, you see someone who's keen, you kind of latch onto them, learn from them. If you're not interested, you look at them on and you basically find out how they skip out of duties and stuff, and then you fall in. That's the whole thing, preparing you. But the fact that they're having these dopey fights as if they're just strangers meeting, that would all be out of their system. First night out in the town, that would have happened, to be honest. A few beers in, whack, and to be honest, people like that have a problem with each other, get a good few digs in, and then they're mates afterwards, 9 times out of 10. Like I said, somebody who can't handle it doesn't normally last long anyway, doesn't get through basic. That's one of the big things actually about the military is you're dealing with all sorts of people. And you got to learn to accept folks and focus on the mission. How the hell I ever lasted, I don't know. But there you go. But yeah, the whole premise, the whole setup, just it takes you out of it straight away. Even if you're not a military person, the chaos and the stupidity, and they're not a formed unit. Because look at Aliens, right? There's an example of a good one. There's a formed unit. There's all sorts of different people. You see the banter between them. It's all friendly. These are people that have been beside each other, served beside each other for years. They know each other intimately. They can crack jokes and stuff because they know how they react. There's that team of, they might call someone an arsehole, but if you did, they'd all turn on you in one. That's the way it works. And you saw them well drilled, moved in, and then when they encountered the threat, that's when things fell apart. That's what you expect to see. You're just waiting for them to get taken out because you're just like, what a bunch of clowns. Even the sergeant, supposed to be experienced one, he acted like a fucking ninny. Like I said, and then what they're doing for the training, actually, it just doesn't, none of it makes sense. None of it does. Because there's even a rule as well. You can't deploy. They had to bring a rule in that you can't deploy straight out of the factory. So doing the pre-deployment stuff, and I know it's a weird thing going around in circles getting it, but it just, nothing makes sense in this leading up to them seeing the shiny thing, which is obviously a come on, which anyone who's experienced would know something weird's happening down here, and there's somebody just conveniently flashing a thing and they can't get comms. Yeah, you don't commit your entire force to go and check it out if it's a come on. And then you get this weird thing of them get up, and then one's left behind to do the radios, forget her name, but she's left behind to do the radio. And then there's this other guy's arsing about, and he's told. Now, this is now went from a training up to a live op, because they've even said, this is not a search and rescue mission. But he's got time to beast someone, going, right, you're going to stand there one leg beside because you want to use the portal. You're going to stand there with your rifle above your head for on one leg till I come back down. Makes no sense. I know they needed to leave someone in the camp, but that was a stupid reason to have a second person left in the camp. And plus, they made a whole thing about him. He's going to go into the portal because that was what it's all about. So they're telling, not showing. It's weird. Where do we go from here? Yeah, it just gets painful from this point onwards. Sorry, guys. This was actually a painful movie to watch. Really was. So they start heading up the hill, and then part of the way, like there's track the whole way up because the Santas have been up there, so there's pathways and stuff. But then they decided they're going to go rock climbing for part of it. And even when they're doing the rock climbing bit, they've got somebody up and going, yeah, as if it's still a training exercise. And they start singing. They go up the fucking hill and start doing that stupid Yank singing thing, which is, so painful. So at what point did the switch from, this is an exercise, that this is life, think again, dog soldiers. Right, they're on exercise. They've been spammed because it's just for the World Cup, and they're like, "Oh, we've been dicked for this. We don't give a shit." And they're lighting campfires and stuff, and they're just going through the motions. Then when they discover the other squad, it's like they got ripped apart. They're like, "Oh, right, this is real now." And then you saw the gear switch in the characters. You saw them switch from this isn't playtime anymore. It's real, and you saw that professionalism come in. This just goes from comedy to bad comedy. And what worries me is William Weisz, and this is written by Wes Craven. Now I know Wes Craven can be a bit cheesy on it. Not the best. He's a good director. He's not the best writer. And we know he rips his properties. Like he just beats a dead horse with his properties. Or he did, obviously, rest in peace, all that good stuff. But they God, where am I going with this? Yeah, if they think this is serious, and if they think they've made a good, gripping, like horror movie, I worry. If they're writing a horror comedy, it make more sense. But the fact that they've written a gripping movie, just does worry me with the choices they make. Sci-fi movies, military structure, like. Yeah, well, that's it. Military's supposed to have a chain of command, but I've noticed one thing, especially American movies, the ranks, they always have colonels and majors and officers like out in the ground. That's not the way it works. And brigadiers and freaking generals are all out on as if they're a squad, and it's just that at most you have a sergeant. If it's a section out in the ground, you have a sergeant. Like that's the realistic thing about the platoon. A sergeant would be covering a group of that size, but you have a corporal as well. Even on a training team. In fact, the training team you have two corporals because there's a lot of admin with recruits. So at the very most, you'd have two corporals. And what they've done here as well, they've almost like senior students are acting like corporals, which doesn't make sense. If they wanted people with more experience to bounce off, they'd have appointed two corporals and have the group look up when they're not speaking to the sergeant, speak to the two corporals, but they didn't. That's just fucking stupid. The problem with like Star Trek is the same. Their away team's always like a senior command of the bridge. That makes no sense. That's like a Royal Navy ship coming up, and then the captain, oh right, I'm going to jump out in a boat here and go and investigate that island. It doesn't happen. That's why you have Marines. And in the likes of, Star Trek was built like a Navy, and it was more the Navy structure / Navy / Air Force, but you'd have like a squad of Marines. They're the ones that go and do it. Think of Battlestar Galactica. You never saw not Adama and Starbuck. They're the fighter pilots, but they're the away teams. You had a dedicated squad of the Viper pilots. They were also the expeditionaries, the warriors. So they served a dual purpose. But you never had. I'm trying to think of. He's Adama's Apollo. Not Apollo's the captain. Adama's the captain of the ship. You never had Adama leave the Battlestar Galactica to go and explore things. He was always commanding the ship. That was the, it was that grounding thing. That's where Star Trek got it wrong, because the captain and the entire of the bridge's crew always went on a mission, which, like, one hand grenade or Star Trek equivalent, and that's your entire command structure of the bridge taken out. They tried a bit better with Next Generation, where at least you had, number one went out in the missions, or, you didn't get the entire crew, where the original series, all the command structure just went out in these weird missions. I was like, no, that's my half crew. I understand it's a TV show, you've limited actors, but Battlestar Galactica could do it. You had a dedicated team, they're the ones that went, and they always reported back, and there was still enough drama to justify having the command of the ship. But it's the same as this. They just send all these weird and wonderful ranks out on missions. What's the worst one? What was that flipping Samuel L. Jackson and John Travolta? Was that called Basic? They're trying to solve a murder, but also it's like drug smuggling, and the entire team, like the entire recruit team, are all the special forces team, pretend to be recruits, apart from like 2 people, and they've all got ranks of major, colonel, captain. You're just like, that's not the way it works. And that's not top secret. There's enough books out now by all militaries, throughout, especially the Western world, militaries and their experience. So it's not exactly breaking any official Secrets Act to say that you don't send your top generals out on boots on the ground type missions. Well. So effectively, what just happens now is it's just a slasher flick. Like I said, you got this weird rock climbing thing, and then all of a sudden, as they're just getting up, they get attacked, and then they're trying to get down again. Somebody cuts a rope, and then they instantly start fighting with each other. The Mexican guy again starts throwing punches, going, "You let go of the rope, you did this." It's like, what the hell are they doing that character? They're not. They just made a daft character for absolutely no reason, for unnecessary drama. There's enough drama and tension in the idea that there's a bunch of almost Neanderthal mutant hill folk that have managed to evade the might of the American army and all their technology, because this is 2000 something, 2007. So yeah, you'll have the beginnings of drone technology, but if nothing else, you had the original UAVs before the drones. You know what I mean? You like the basic form of predators around them. You had Iron Sky, you have night vision, heat vision, you had all that stuff. And you're telling me, that you couldn't build enough tension, that the fact that these group of hill people have been able to avoid all this to the point that they have to actually send boots on the ground and set up sensor equipment to cover the vastness. And the only thing they can do is send 4 people, and they couldn't put a company as we do it in the Falkland Islands. We have a battalion permanently based in the Falkland. And then there's a rolling battalion comes in and does exercises, and it's exercises, but it's really patrolling. You're telling me you can't do that, and you can't just have boots on the ground and okay, here's a training exercise. You're patrolling this area like dog soldiers, busy to flush out the enemy. You're telling me you couldn't use the recruits as bait and have another squad? The amount of money they wasted on the Kandahar thing could have been spent on that, but they didn't. Just saying. They could have saved the money on the birth scene. They could have saved money on the Kandahar scene. They'd already done the scrolly text bit of saying after the family, only half the family survived. So we know the first family survived, even though it's all the binoculars pendant that might have got taken out. And the government's still denying it, but they're doing something. So they just start having exercises in the area. So that could have been their exercise, patrolling through, and then their strings are being pulled. And then the team watching them, suppose the act gets taken out and then it goes wrong, could have used the dog soldiers plot. And this would have made a lot more sense. And there's nothing wrong with really losing the idea, because it's a tried and tested idea. But they just start getting up this hill and they start, get taken out 1-1. They leave their rifles laying about the place, which is it's an absolute no-no. Especially if you're on live ops. That thing stays by your side. You go for a shit, you take that thing with you for a shit. You have that on you at all times. You're sleeping, it's with you. That's one thing the instructor would do. Actually check, and if you've fallen asleep in sentry, for example, they just take your kit off you, and then you buy it back. Known as rubies. You get a ruby, so you have to buy it back for bottles of port to go in the sergeant's mess. Equipment, and then you kind of learn because it's less than a formal charge. Because you get formally charged, you're done for. You know what I mean? But they do it as a learning. You basically learn not to do that, and there's nothing. You can punish people as well, but sometimes hitting the pocket. The embarrassment as well, having to buy your own kit back in front of the entire squad. Happened to me once, as you can tell. Never again. You learn that thing once, and it's just the whole I've cocked up, and you're embarrassed, and you're like, I mean, you never see the port; it just gets bought. But it's the whole method instruction, brilliant. But that's the fact that these guys are still leaving their rifles around. You think they're just like 2 weeks in. So if they're 2 weeks in, they wouldn't be doing advanced training at the start. That's where it's all messed up. These guys are acting as if they're like just off Civvy Street, and this is like their first weekend, in their first week away, which doesn't happen. Don't know what way the National Guard and Americans work, but I know the reserves because that's where I started. But you spend up to a year getting ready for your 2-week course, your first one, phase 1, because you've a couple. You spend like at least 6 months getting ready for that. No messing about, and it's busy every other weekend. Just don't, and then every night, every week, you just training, and it's all about building up. And then when you're ready, you go on that course. Then you've got a year to do the second one, or else you're back to start. And that's when you see the drop off. Because my job before I finished was recruiting, so you just see the drop off, right to that point. It's amazing how many people just get to that and they can't handle the pressure of that. You don't even touch operational stuff. But these guys are all acting like they're just straight off Civvy Street, and they just put on a uniform for the first time and they dress like it too. And the frigging kit, you're telling me they couldn't afford date sex? Like they don't have basic patrol kit? At this point, that would be drilled into them. And it's just an absolute cluster. When you think of it, like I said, the money they spent on the explosions at the start and that training scene, which makes no sense, that could have been spent down in a few day sex. And even fill them a pad. Like they don't carry water or nothing. They've just got the chest rig, which doesn't hold very much. I mean, and the pouches are empty. You see them and all. Anyway. Say la vie. This goes on. Of course, they fall out with each other. And then when they actually get in contact with the enemy, like they start appearing, they're all over the show, and then the sergeant gets shot because this guy's falling on the ground. He's just spraying and praying into the air, and he shoots the sergeant. And you knew it was coming a mile off. But then what the hell are these people doing in this position in the first place? They're, this is why this demonstrates why you have such a robust recruit training period, because you can't let people like us join in a section. Everyone get wiped out. Just the fact that a bit of fear, a bit of smoke and noise and uncertainty that's all it takes for them to fall apart. Not good. But yeah, there's like 3 or 4 of these hell people. You've got one gets, I don't know, it just meandered on through. I'm getting bored talking about this now, to be honest. Just a boring, yeah, it just got boring at this point because it just meandered through. People getting picked off, of course, to separate, to do this, to do that. One of the girls gets kidnapped. We meet the leader, who's like, "Give me, baby." These people aren't designed to raise babies either, so it's just weird. You see boobies at the start of the movie. Well, the girl giving birth to the stillborn mutant thing. but it's not good because it's not. It's a disgusting scene, if that makes sense. So it's not titillating. It's not designed. It's meant to be horrifying, which actually works. It's not a nice scene to watch. Yeah, I wouldn't say liked because I didn't like the first set of Hill people, but they had a bit more coherence about them. These are just 4 people running about, just they haven't built anything, and they think they're going to replenish their numbers. People, I guess, don't think like that. They're not one. They're just, you know what I mean? They're just on a murder survival spree. They wouldn't be thinking that far ahead of trying to be a race of people. So that premise is stupid. At least when the first ones, and I think they're just recreating the rape scene from the first one, if that makes sense. But they're trying to justify it, which you don't justify that shit anyway. Then we meet the good one, who's supposed to be like the lizard character from the first one. Except he looks a bit like Leatherface, but he's like, oh, hide here, and he can sort of speak. And then Mexican guy shouts about again. Such a stereotype. Like, you want to talk about racism in a movie? This is it. When they make him out to be just basically a gangbanger in a uniform and losing shit all the time, it's like, piss off. No need for that. Yeah, this is a racist movie, by the way, because the way they portray that wee guy is not right. Just make him out to be a clown and all the stereotypes you can think of. So you got that as well, and yeah, he then grabs the dynamite, I'll sort them, and it turns out the dynamite's still attached to the clacker because boom, big fight, go back to rescue, girl will get kidnapped, and then 3 of them out of an entire squad of like 30 people stagger out, and then we get more of that stupid scrolly text shit to say they still deny this is now known as Area 16. And like, yeah, whatever. Absolutely terrible movie. Shit. It's not even fun. It's not even a fun slasher. I would get it if there was a sense of fun about it. It's not. It's trying to be a gritty, serious movie, but there's that much unintentional comedy in it because of the stupidity that you don't get to take it in that respect. And because they're trying to take it seriously, then you don't get the comedic aspect. And then because the characters are all 2D wooden planks, like you can't latch on to any of these characters. So there's no hero. They're there, and like I said, it's one of those sort of plink, plink, plink. Guess who? Any one of them could have survived. Any one of them could have got killed because you've no investment and you've no signs of like leadership. Make the original Cardi guy out to be a hero and just didn't make sense. That's a guy that was standing with a rifle above his head. He's the end survivor with the other 2 girls. And yeah, whatever. Didn't care. I'm glad. I don't think there's any more of these. I'm not getting any more anyway. I'm done. 2's enough. That was just an impulse buy. It's only like £3 or something it cost me, so I'm not too upset about it. But it would cost me more to rent it on streaming than what I bought the DVDs for. So I'll take that as a win. And there you go. That's it. Have you watched this? Did you actually like this movie? Do you disagree? Of course, let me know. And as usual, keep up to date with the channel, do the typey clicky things. And until next time, keep it creepy, keep it horrific.